Hey everybody, it's Jessie, and today I'm going to talk to you about Trillium. Before I begin, I just want to make it really clear that watching this review is not a replacement for reading the comic book, but with that said, this is not a spoiler-free review. I spoiled pretty much everything from beginning to end, but if you watch this review and you think you might like the comic book, then I encourage you to go to your local comic book store and buy the single issues or buy the trades if it ever gets collected, and just support the things you like. With money. Because they need money in order to keep making more of the things you like. Trillium is an 8-issue comic book series written and drawn by homegrown Canadian artist Jeff Lemire, and it was published by Vertigo Comics. Trillium is the story of two star-crossed travelers. On one cover we have Nika Tensmith, a scientist living in the 40th century in a far-off galaxy with the last remains of the human race. So, upside down and backwards, on the other side of the comic book, we have William, a middle-aged war veteran wandering through the jungle looking for something mysterious. Presumably, it's something that'll help him with the PTSD he got from World War I. These reverse covers are a hint for the cute storytelling device that Jeff Lemire uses. Reading the comic, you get about halfway through, and the comic flips. Depending on whose perspective you start from, whenever you get to the other character, you have to reverse it to read their story. This device happens a lot throughout the different issues. I thought it was pretty cute until about issue 3, whenever you had to start turning the book upside down every 6 pages. I might be an idiot, but when I first read the story, I thought you had to read through all of Nika's story and then turn it upside down and backwards like the first one and then read through William's story, but that didn't make any fucking sense when I tried to read it. When I figured it out, I read through Nika's story all the way through and I just skipped William's pages, and then I went and I read William's pages without reading Nika's, and then I went through a third time and then read it how you were supposed to, just in case there were any parallels between Nika and William in the visual storytelling and in their journeys together, which is something that Jeff does a lot in the series. There are a lot of visual parallels between Nika and William because they're supposed to be bound through space and time. The switch between the perspectives happens whenever Nika and William are apart, and since this is the story of how they come together, they tend to be apart a lot. It's not a horrible idea, it's just that whenever you get to somebody else's perspective, you have to turn it upside down and then read left to right, but turn the pages backwards. So, it was maybe not my favorite thing, but I could see some people getting kind of frustrated with it. When I read the comic, I started with Nika's perspective, and where she is in the 40th century, humanity has been pushed to the edges of the universe, and we're just down to under 4,000 members. What's happened is that a sentient disease known as the Call has been hunting humanity wherever they go. It's called sentient because it does seem to be hunting, and it's immune to any vaccines or cures that can come up to fight it. Really, it doesn't come into play until about the 3rd act, so just roll with it. What's brought one of humanity's last colonies to this backwater planet is a flower known as Trillium. Trillium seems to be the only thing that the Call are unable to break down, so it's kind of important for humans to get their hands on it. On this planet there are tons of Trillium, but in order to access it, Nika needs to make friends with the natives of the planet called the Atabithians. And she doesn't have a lot of time to do it in because there aren't very many humans left, and a woman known as Commander Paul, who is in charge of all of humanity, is starting to lose patience. So Nika has to get her butt in gear before something terrible happens. Along for the ride is a third character known as Essie. She's an AI that lives in Nika's suit, and we can hear her coming from the suit and from some computers. She's there to kind of help provide Nika and William with a helpful ear to vomit all of their feelings onto, and to provide a little bit of exposition when we need it. So Nika, doing what she does best, being a scientist and a total badass, sneaks past a secret forbidden wall that humans aren't allowed to go through on this planet and finds a huge field of Trillium. And of course, there are the Atabithians there waiting. They give Nika a piece of Trillium to eat so she can understand their language, and it causes her to trip balls. After this experience, the Atabithian commits seppuku, I guess. The Atabithian people take her away from the scene and force her into the pyramid, where she climbs to the stairs and stumbles out into the light. And that's where she sees William for the first time. Flip the book! Now we're on to William's story. So we're introduced to William as he stumbles through the trenches of World War I and onto the bodies of his brothers at arms. A friendly hand shakes him out of his flashback, and we learn that he's actually on an expedition in search of something. Whatever it is, it's deep in the jungle and it screams bad news. William and his comrades get into a fight over whether or not they should leave, and Clayton tries to hold William's PTSD against him because of how much he's changed since the war. Obviously, when you're emotionally devastated, your decision-making skills go with it. But then they are attacked by ethnically indistinguishable jungle savages. Ouch, Jeff. Race trope aside, William books into the jungle and finds the strange pyramid we saw earlier with Nika and the Atabithians. Just as he comes around the corner, we see Nika, and that's the end of issue 1. Okay guys, confession time. I am a huge fan of Jeff Lemire. He first sparked my interest in his series known as Sweet Tooth, and I haven't been able to get enough of his work. His stories have a kind of honesty to them that I really appreciate, and Trillium is no exception. His art style can be a little bit, we'll say, sketchy at times, but I find that just adds to the charm of his stories. Back to the comic. In issue 2, William and Nika try to communicate, but because of the thousands of years between them, their languages are completely different. They manage to learn that William is from the year 1921 and Nika is from 3797. How we manage transgalactic space travel in 1800 years, I guess it's just a miracle of sci-fi. The only word they can understand in both of their languages is Trillium. Nika eats the flower again, and both her and William trip the fuck out again. And they exchange past memories and learn each other's name. Nika, embarrassed to throw up her new boyfriend or something, stumbles into the temple, and unfortunately for William, it closes behind her. Nika returns to her world, having only been gone for a few minutes in their time, and there's bad news. The call is here! One thing we learn in issue 3 is that Nika and William both have issues with authority. On Nika's side, Commander Pole is losing patience with the diplomatic approach to the Athabithians, and on William's, his friend Clayton is insisting he get back to his medication in order to treat his PTSD. Both of them go so far as to blow chunks of the pyramid up in order to find each other again, which works, kind of. Unsurprisingly, this has unexpected consequences. The least of which is poor Clayton getting captured by Commander Pole, and perhaps the most drastic result is tearing a hole in the fabric of space and time. I guess there was some crazy junk in that temple. Look, the savage brown people and the peaceful blue people are friends, and they speak the same crazy space tongue. Lemire, are you trying to say that the savages that attacked William's friends aren't dangerous, just misunderstood? Alright, whatever, I guess. They lead Nika and William inside the sacred village tree and show them what Nika calls a map. They explain that the Atabithians believe that a nearby black hole called Trotter 6 is the mouth of God and will lead them to paradise. Meanwhile, William's buddy Clayton has stumbled into some bad news with Commander Pole. She comes pretty close to killing him because girl don't put up with bullshit. While Nika and William are trying not to make out, Nika and Clayton are suddenly being torn between the two timelines. This crisis is averted pretty quickly, and after finally deciding that she's waited long enough, Commander Pole completely destroys the temple of the Atabithians in order to scare them into giving her their supply of Trillium flowers. This fucks a lot of shit up, just as our leads were about to do it. The complete destruction of the pyramid leads to some unexpected consequences.